I just came from an amazing day at the beach. We went down to the beach. Let me hit record on Zoom over here. Hold on. Where is that record button? There it is. Record. Anyway, today I was on the beach in a place called Ashdod. I don't know if you guys ever been to Ashdod. But it's the way it works is there's the Gaza Strip, and then you got all these towns alongside, and then you got above it is a town called Ashkelon, and then the next town is Ashdod. So today I went there. I didn't know all the beaches are closed. What's up with that? So I didn't know you could close a beach. I mean, I know during Corona they closed beaches, which is a little nuts. But yeah, somehow they closed the beach. And so anyway, my son and I were chilling down there. We're having a nice day at the beach and having a good time. Just two of us talking. We had beach chairs and faced each other a little bit. And all of a sudden, from a lifeguard tower, we got announced that the beach is closed for sure. So we decided to ignore the words closed, and we just heard the beach for sure. Just kidding. Then he kept calling us and saying, "You two guys, get out of here." So okay. So we went up the beach and got out the smash ball game. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's an Israeli sport. Really cool sport. You have these kind of big wood paddles with a little round ball that doesn't really have a lot of air in it. And you slam it back and forth. And you know what's really cool about it? It's as fun as ping pong, but zero competition. In fact, I think the progressive liberals would love it because, no one loses, which is one of their things. So we, you actually hit it. You got to hit it as hard as you can, but you hit it in a way that he can get it back. And so it's really non-competitive, which is super cool. And anyway, we're just slamming this ball back and forth. And we did that for a while. Then we decided, you know what? We're going to ignore the fact that we are forbidden to go to the beach. And we changed our outfits by just being in our bathing suits and then headed a little further north of the lifeguard tower. So we're a couple 100 yards away. And we went and had a beautiful swim. And then we went skateboarding along a beautiful path, went up the side of a river, straight from the beach, literally from the beach up a river, and just skated up there. And there was a whole zoo on the right full of all kinds of animals, and which is open, just anyone can go cruise there. It wasn't like a zoo where you have to be admitted or anything. Anyway, we had a good time. Super cool. And then we grabbed guitars. We played for a little while. And yeah, that's the story. Let's get busy today. I want you guys to think of questions that you have. Someone told me that there's a live chat on YouTube, but I don't know how to open that live chat. Let me see if I can find it. See what that is. No, empty tab group. No. Let me get to that live chat. Read my version. Read this. No. Now I'm messing things up. How do I find my live? Oh my gosh, live chat. I just found a live chat by accident. Okay, cool. Good afternoon, Rabbi from Kentucky. Awesome. Amazing. Sometimes the powers that be like to exercise their right to close beaches and roads. Yeah. I was not one of those conspiracy theorists during COVID when they were controlling our lives. And in Israel, we were being super controlled. But I wasn't the guy saying like, oh, they're out to control us because, and I'm happy to be corrected because if I'm wrong, but my whole thing was that the only thing I could guess if Corona was about controlling us was that they were practicing controlling us to see if they could for the future. And they succeeded. So that's the only thing I could think of, because to control us and then not control us didn't make much sense to me. There was another theory that they did it to get up the 5G without protest. Okay, let's get to work. Everyone, please throw your questions my way. We have a chat on Zoom. We have a chat on Facebook. So, I mean, on YouTube. So, please tell me your questions. Aaron, you're a real troublemaker. Can you unmute your phone for a second and get into it with me a little bit? A subject you'd like to cover? I don't think we're going to go that long because I'm hosting 50 people right now. In fact, if my wife saw me in the studio, she'd kill me. But so far, I've done everything she asked me to do. I think we're ready. Just the guests are on standard Jewish time. SJT. Dickerman, can you unmute and got a question or two or a point? Ellie, you could too. Aaron, you got a question or a subject you want me to handle?
I'm brainstorming.
Just any subject, something might be bothering you.
No,
What's bothering you?
I was just at a mechanic, and he just started singing some Araby type of song.
Yeah.
And normally it wouldn't make me feel uncomfortable, but it made me feel uncomfortable. But I'm not.
That's what's bothering you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, basically. I don't know, just being more conscious of possible people not being cool with Jews. A lot of Jews.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just dealing with that anxiety and making sure that I'm not feeding into the, fear that this whole thing brings.
Sure. You carry a gun?
I own one in LA, and I'm in New York, so but I'm thinking of buying one here.
Got it. Yeah. It's interesting. I have 2 sons-in-laws with guns now. They're letting you get a gun real quick over here. So like a son-in-law of mine a few weeks ago asked for a permit, and he's already carrying. He just came to a wedding the other night and opened his jacket to show me that he's got a gun. Which is interesting. I don't want to talk all about security today, so
right.
Let's start talking about some other things. I'm gonna pick a subject, but I'd rather you guys do. So if you guys got something, Lipa, if you got something, Vrummy, any of you guys, Eli, Surly, I'm gonna go to YouTube real quick, see if anyone asks something on the live chat over there. So someone asked an interesting question here. I see one already. It says like this. Is there room in the modern Jewish community, meaning in today's Jewish community, for converts? Raised Christian, but want to know more about Judaism. Your lectures have been eye-opening. Love your Kabbalah teachings. That's nice. So there's it's an interesting question, because this may be close to the last time for anyone to convert to Judaism. We don't proselytize. We generally push away 3 times, just to push away a little bit, to make sure this guy knows what he's in for. Anyone who's willing to convert, well, like literal populations are coming out against us right now, is a good sign that you're true, that you're real. In Israel, they investigate whether you have a Gentile significant other. And if you want to join a conversion program, you have to sign that you will not marry that person in the future, which is so interesting. Judaism only accepts real conversion. What does real mean? Real means you're doing it for the right reason. And what's the right reason? People have their reasons, but it has to be based on something you understand about God, something you understand about Torah, something you understand about truth, and and you have to be the kind of person that if they're pointing a gun at you and say, if you agree to convert, let's say someone's did all the studying and they learned everything you got to learn a bunch to convert. But now that they learned all that stuff and now they're ready to take on all the commandments in one day in a dip in the mikvah, which is a ritual bath that you go into. If they're willing to take all that on and someone came with a gun and said, you get inside that ritual bath and you're going to get shot. Maybe I'm being a little extreme, but, and the guy says, I'm in, that would be like converting in today after October 7th, 2023. That would be a very truthful convert, someone who's really real. And but yeah, converts are accepted. And there's even whole communities of converts. My media guy who handles all my media stuff, he lives in Guatemala, and he says there's a synagogue there, just converts, 200 converted families who are all together in a shul. And it's like he likes it a lot because it's like they're very observant. Because unlike Jews, see, a Jew's Jewish, whether or not he keeps the Torah. A convert has to already study everything it takes to convert, and then, but still be a Gentile, and then convert into understanding everything it entails. So many Jews all around the world have no idea what it entails and are, and have converted to Judaism. Sorry, many Jews have no idea what it entails and then just don't necessarily keep it, or they do. But they're still a Jew no matter what they do. Now, part of the reason why Jews warn converts not to convert unless they're absolutely real about it is because once they convert, now they're in, which means now you deal with all the anti-Semitism that Jews deal with, which is again, it's systemic. It's not something that do the reasons. All the reasons Gentiles use for anti-Semitism are the outside reason. The inner reason is an ancient vibrational hatred towards Jewish people. And it's a real spiritual reality that some people get tracked on that vibration. They can't break out of it. Maybe they can, I don't know, but many don't break out. They can't seem to break out. I live here in Israel with Arabs. Like I was fist punching Arabs today, like out in hanging out with my son. The Arabs that are neutral here are horribly embarrassed by their more by their radicalized brethren, and it is those radicals have made it so uncomfortable to be an Arab living in Israel. You'll notice I'm not going to use the word Palestine, nor should anybody, because there is no such country. There never was one. If somehow they get our Gentile-like leaders to agree to a state, and they call it Palestine. Okay, now we got a state called Palestine, but it's amazing how even right-wing, conservative, certainly neutral, politicians, newscasters, suddenly the word Palestine's become like a household word, as if there's a country. Tell me, what are its borders? Palestine. What money did they use? Oh, they never had a currency. Who was the leader of it? Never had a leader. I mean, the only leader who was their first leader? The person who introduced modern day terrorism, none other than Yasser Arafat, who was the introducer of modern day terrorism. With, that was that's their leader. Let's go back to conversion. So just want to welcome my dear Chaim Roth to the group. Welcome, Chaim. And anyway, oh, you know what? My Camera's not on full focus. Um. Anyway, the convert has to take it all on, and that's it. Now, if they decide some year later, they decided later that they don't want to keep the Torah anymore, like they're done with their conversion, it's too late. You're in, which means when you go into the next world and you're judged for your life, you're judged not by 7 commandments, the 7 laws of Noah, the 7 Noahide laws, keep the 7, go to heaven. Not the 7. They're judged on, and you'd think I'm going to say 613. No, they're judged on 45,000 halachas. About 30,000 of them are the negative commandments, thou shalt nots, and about 15,000 of them are what you shall do, which is why you have to learn so much Torah. This is why the atheists like Sam Harris and various others out there that they like to say that that the Torah is extremely ambiguous. They call it bad coding. It's like bad code. Christianity is medium ambiguous, pretty bad code, not as bad as the Torah. And then Islam's very good code. It's like you don't have to know you're behind from your elbow to keep this stuff. Like, it's very clear, says what it means what it says. This is how to do it. Good code. And it happens to be that good code is an absolute disaster for humanity in its extreme state, in its what do you call it? A radical state. But the whole reason that Judaism's bad code in their eyes and in atheist eyes, the reason why it's considered ambiguous in their eyes is because the Torah was meant, the 5 books of Moses and Tanakh, for that matter, the prophets and the writings, were meant for the people that received them, who were going to study them and understand all kinds of minutia, to be able to split the hairs, to understand what do you do in a case of financial claims towards a business partner or something. How do you deal with all that stuff? And how do you deal with all the details of life and meaning legal stuff in the myriads? I mean, think how much legal books there are in the Gentile world. Judaism will outdo that in like, they have a fraction. The Gentile world, think how much books you would have to study to know all of just regular secular law. So that doesn't come close to our legal books. Well, how are you supposed to understand that from the 5 books of Moses? Because there's keys to understand the 5 books of Moses, so that you can properly understand how to live inside this giant digital simulation, this video game that God created. He didn't expect the Gentiles to do that. But he expected, after 2,448 years, 48 years of failed humanity experiment, he gave the Torah so that at least one nation would do it. And so when some atheist says that the Torah is ambiguous, bad code, or it's got slavery in it, it's obviously bad, it's like, no, you're an idiot, actually, Mr. Genius Atheist. You're actually an idiot. And all it would take you was 1 hour conversation with a proper Torah scholar. 1 hour. You got an hour? Or you're just going to put instead 80 hours of video of your atheist baloney, while dismissing the entire 3,336 years of Torah scholarship and Torah lifestyle that's lived only off of that understanding of the principles of how to read the Torah. And the same thing, Jordan Peterson, I love the guy, but my goodness, and the guy does he gets a bunch of people around, like all these other smart guys, gets a whole group around him to be to help him go through this amazing webinar about the book of Exodus. And he didn't include one Torah scholar in there. And the best he could do was that Dennis Prager. He's married to a Gentile. Like, that was his idea of of who to use for the whole book of Exodus, oh my gosh, like why don't you take a Torah scholar for that, who has thousands of years tradition in how to learn those things, and it would have blown everybody's mind. Today, if Peterson did that, he would have these at this point. He'd be wearing payas by now, because he's a very truth-oriented person. But like, where's your brain? Where's your brain? You know, it's like, who would ever do that? You know, if I wanted to rebuild a Ford Mustang, I would go straight to Ford and say to one of their top mechanics, if not their top mechanic, the chief mechanic, and I'd say to him, listen, buddy, you know, I'll pay you $50 an hour, I'll pay you $100 an hour. How do you rebuild a Ford? I want to rebuild my 1964 Ford Mustang. And the guy's like, you came to the right place, man. I did that when I was 16 years old. And so it's like, who the hell are these geniuses who can't seem to figure out that a Torah scholar is where you go? And the funny thing is, I'm not even one of them. I'm not one of the Torah scholars, but I got enough brains to put my bet with them. That's where I'm placing my bet. If you want to be part of the eternal, if you want to be eternal in your life, you want to live, if you want, meaning what I mean by that, not that I'm not living eternally, although that's also the case, but we're all going to live eternally. But if you want to live your life aligned with eternity, so put your bet with the people who've been in an unbroken chain all the years. And then of course you get these guys, sometimes Jewish, sometimes not, who don't know they're behind from their elbow, who say, well, what do you mean? There's all kinds of arguments in the Jewish, you know, the rabbinic oral tradition of Judaism. Yeah, really? All kinds of arguments? Well, any Torah scholar, and there's many of them right now on the Zoom call here, because I'm doing YouTube off Zoom. Every one of us knows that when you see an argument in the Talmud, every time, as you study into it deeper, 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 as you're reading into it, you start to realize that they're talking about truth. Both of them, they're both saying the absolute truth. And that's why, oh my gosh, I lost my mic. I've never rested my arm on my mic, but I might as well tighten it in case I think to do that again. That's why one of the famous rabbis of the Talmud, his name is Rav Papa. And Rav Papa was actually a beer salesman. Yes, rabbis used to work. And he was a big chubby guy, and he brewed beer and he sold beer. And he you know what he was famous for? He was famous that whenever you saw Rav Papa come into an argument, there's already a running argument between two of our sages, and then you see a Rav Papa. So what is Rav Papa saying? Rav Papa's saying that what he is saying, sorry, what Papa does, he comes and brings what's called in Aramaic a yukimta. What's a yukimta? A yukimta is that he brings down the case that they were actually arguing about. It turns out that when the first rabbi said what he said, he was talking about that case. And when the second rabbi was arguing, he was actually talking about a different case. They were talking about two different cases. But if you would ask the second rabbi about the first case, he would agree. And if you ask the first rabbi about the second case, he would agree too. And that's how he got the nickname Papa. You know why his name was Papa? Because Peh Aleph. This mouth Peh and that mouth Peh Aleph, they're one. They're saying the same thing. He brought unity to people because he was able to clarify arguments aren't even arguments. But if you knew the depths of going into those arguments and what you come out with afterwards, it's like, whoa, blows your mind. And then to really hammer this point home so no one ever thinks for a second that the Jews are arguing, to really drive it home, is that what the Jews are arguing about when the rabbis are, like when they actually have an argument, they're not arguing about the big stuff. They're arguing about very little stuff. For example, there's an argument about the head tefillin. The head tefillin is made of 4 compartments. Those are the black boxes we wear. Okay, not from the airplane. These are the black boxes that Jews wear. But these 4 compartments are where each one has a part of the Torah inside of it that's written very small, folded up into a little flat piece, and then it's slid into the four parts. Now, there is an argument between two Rishonim, which means they lived about 1,000 years ago. It's a whole period of rabbinic literature. There's two Rishonim, Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam, who argue on the order you place the parshas. You place those Torah portions. Now, according to Rashi and according to Rabbeinu Tam, you're still going in black boxes. The argument's only, what's the order? So the big stuff, they agree. The little stuff, they didn't agree. When it came to, and by the way, they agreed on the same parsha. They didn't disagree about the portions. They only disagreed about what was the order. And even with that discrepancy, there's Kabbalistic reasons to use the Rabbeinu Tam. In fact, for those of you guys who are in the listening to this, who look more like me with the beards and the pace, is I don't know if you're careful not to speak what's called divrei chol, which means you're not allowed to speak about mundane matters while wearing the boxes. So I actually saw inside of a Kabbalistic book that said that when you're wearing your Rabbeinu Tam tefillin, make sure you speak some divrei chol. Yeah, do you hear that, Chaim? Is that crazy? Oh, maybe Chaim's doing something else. I really said that for Chaim's benefit. But when you're wearing your Rabbeinu Tam, I don't know, do something. Call your wife, ask her if you need to pick something up from the shop or something, and that's mundane enough, and you did it. Okay, I'm going to go to the live chat on YouTube because it's, no offense, guys, but they're more interesting. Okay, let's go on our live chat. And well, if I see a lot of questions, then I'll answer them much quicker. And I just want to say about the conversion thing, just to finish that one up, is that you cannot convert to Judaism once the Messiah comes. Then it's too late. Can't join us when it's convenient. You got to join us when it's inconvenient. So if someone would like to convert to Judaism, it better be soon, because I have a feeling we're heading into the Armageddon. May not be, but if there was ever a time I thought we were, and there were many times I did actually to admit, and it's a little embarrassing to admit that. But if there was ever a time we're heading into the final wars before the advent of the Messianic era, it's now. So if you want to convert to Judaism, you better start your program now, because it takes some time. And in fact, if I were you, I'd find a city that lets you do it the easiest, because the easiest is not going to be easy. It's just that they're not going to string you along for years. You know, I don't know how long it would take, a year or something. So if you do want to do that, I would start your program right away, because the second the Messianic era comes in, meaning when the Messiah comes. So that's it. Whoever's in is in, whoever's out is out. But being out doesn't mean anything. Nothing wrong. Being out just means you're a Gentile. Nothing wrong with being a Gentile. Keep the 7, go to heaven. Okay, next question. Same person. I have had my blinders removed during an experience on LSD. Welcome to the club. Experience prophetic vision. I have made connections from your teachings on meditation and what I experienced that proved to me God is real. Cool. Saying something like that earns you a relationship with me. So take out a pen and write down this number. That's a plus 972-52-834-4664 plus 972-52-834-4664. And yeah, you're in, bro. We're gonna connect. Very cool. Lots of people did that. I'll tell you a quick story on that subject. I was teaching a class in Jerusalem. I apologize, by the way, if other people have heard me tell this story a few times. I was teaching a class in Jerusalem, about 40 guys in the class, 30 guys in the class, exactly, actually. And they're all observant Jews, meaning they had already come to Judaism. They were about a year into their studies, and born and raised Jewish. I don't think there were any converts there. We don't get a lot of converts around. But anyway, all of a sudden, this guy interrupts the class and says, Rabbi, can I share something? I said, sure, go ahead. He said that he was raised Christian by Jewish parents. His parents were Christian. If you can be a Christian Jew, it's an oxymoron. But he said he was raised Christian, and his parents, they went to church every Sunday. On a Saturday night, he goes to a concert with friends, and they give him LSD. So he has his first psychedelic experience. Next morning, his parents pick him up. His parents wake him up and are taking him to church. It's like, church. Gets on his clothes. He gets near the church. As soon as he got to the church door, he's like, I'm not going in there. And the parents are like, what do you mean you're not going in there? He's like, I'm not going in there. Like, I'm sorry. That's not going to happen. And then he went on a search. And he searched and searched and searched, and he found his way to Judaism, much to his parents' dismay. They were not happy about that. And here he was sharing this with the whole class. The class was pretty blown away. I asked, I was about to continue my lecture when another guy raises his hand. So I said, yes. He says, same thing happened. Raised Christian, psychedelic experience, couldn't go to church the next day, and found my way to Judaism. I was like, at which point I decided we need to take a poll. And I said, everyone raise your hand. I'm not expecting there are other people raised Christian, and there were no others, but everyone raise your hand if you came to Judaism after having done psychedelic medicines. And as this guy who asked the question said, it lifted the blinders off. So it definitely lifts the blinders off, but it's not just that. There's many other reasons why. If you'd like me to discuss them, I will. But he, guess what? Of 30 people in this class, random group of people, of 30 people in this class, 28 out of the 30 raised their hand. 28 out of 30. Who were the other two, by the way? That's kind of interesting. One of them was a South African guy. South African guy was a total wingnut. I mean, this guy was like cross-dressing under his clothes. He was like really trippy guy, long hair. It was like, didn't know if he was a man or a woman, wasn't keeping Judaism yet, but coming along the program like for a long time. He finally made his decision, and he just cut off all his hair and just left two big payas, took off his tights, and he was in. This guy is an amazing guy. He's one of my oldest students from like many years, very, very connected to me. And the other guy was only like starting to become observant. This guy was the kind of guy, like, I can't even describe him. I mean, you would say, if anything, is he was from that movie with I forgot the name of that guy, Chevy Chase. What was the name of that? It was a golf movie, and the kid's name was Spalding. The rich kid's name was Spalding, and we're talking. But the guy in the class, chubby guy with like plaid pants and a plaid shirt, plaid shorts pulled up over his belly button. Anyway, that guy got no traction in Judaism and just went back to his life. Never even became fully observant. Went back to his secular life. The other 28 guys today are marrying off children already. You understand? They totally made it in their Jewish lives, and so there is something very much to that. I would need to see, of the 5 cameras that are on, I would need to see 5 thumbs up if you want me to say why there is this effect when people do psychedelics. To Judah, that's 1 thumb up. That's a thumb up. 1 more thumb up. Okay, Ellie, you don't want to hear this part? I don't have to say it.
I was on the phone, so I didn't hear the question.
Chaim, you give me a thumbs up? I don't know what Chaim's doing. Chaim's like, I'm staring through his Tesla ceiling over there. Chaim, you want me to tell the story? Okay, I'll tell the story. Oh, Chaim Greenfield's here. Okay. You say yes. So the reason is because and by the way, I'm not advocating psychedelics whatsoever. I do have all kinds of theories why God put them in the world. I personally am not involved with psychedelics at all, but certainly have a serious background in it. And I actually reverse engineered the psychedelic experience to create my flagship seminar, The Possible You, which is in 5 cities around the world, and 13,000 graduates. So anyone who's a graduate of my seminar could say they've done psychedelics, even though they didn't ingest anything during the seminar. Anyway, what happens is that when the action of psychedelics, what it does is when it hits around the 45-minute mark and it starts taking effect, what it does is it takes everything that's not true and removes it from your mentality. Anything that's not true just gets removed right away. Now, it's not that you couldn't superimpose something not true and it would seem like the truest thing ever. That might work if you really push it. But if you're left to your own devices, things that aren't true are going to go away. This is one of the reasons why people are so afraid of the famous bad trip syndrome, of having a bad trip. Why? Because what if your own personality is not true? Now we're getting into the possible use stuff. What if your actual personality is not true? And so all of a sudden, you don't know who the hell you are. So the next thing you know, you're dying because the brain just computes that, okay, I'm losing who I am. Maybe I'm actually dying. You're not dying. You're just no longer able to deal with the fact that nothing about you is even remotely true. And so you don't know who the hell you are anymore. So that's one of the things that happens on a personal note. But what also happens is all of that which you were taught growing up from birth to death, everything that you were taught growing up, and for most people, you're in your 18, 19, 20 years old, or you're 30 years old, or 40 years old, everything you were taught that is not true is gone. It is gone. So it just means nothing. It is like Chinese. It doesn't mean anything to you anymore. And this is a pretty big issue, by the way, because right now the Hasidic movement is crazy about psychedelics. And what's the problem with that is that there's two things in a Hasidic lifestyle. There is the Torah, which is all true. And then there is cultural stuff that's not true. It's cultural stuff. If you're from this village, you do things that way. If you're from that village, you do things that way. You're from that place, you sing this song. If you're from that place, you sing it a little different. And so the culture of the Hasidic movement, it's not true. It's just the way things developed in that particular region or in that particular city. Now, what happened is that as the Enlightenment hit 200 years ago and things got very rigid in the observant community, that's why we wear these rigid outfits, the black hat and the black clothes and and like everything got super rigid because, hey, the world's turning to chaos with the Enlightenment movement. And today, oh my gosh, is the ultimate expression of chaos. Now that boys and girls, dogs and cats living with each other, the whole world's gone crazy. It's so weird speaking to a screen. My brain just went, doo. What were we talking about? So if you're from the Hasidic community, you have these like things that for the last 200 years, and especially your grandparents, your great-grandparents, well, your great-grandparents, but little, then your grandparents, then your parents, and then this extremely rigid educational system where your parents send you exactly to your community. And then you go for a night of psychedelics because you think you're doing some healing work, because it is very healing. You're going to do some healing work. You wake up the next morning and like everything that they made so important means nothing to you. And here's the craziest part. Here's the worst part. Here's the danger. And the danger is that a lot of those Hasidic groups, it's been so long, 200 years, a long time. Many of them have blurred the distinction between what's actually Torah and what's actually just a custom from that part of the world. It's become blurred. Like they've made the custom more important than the Torah in many cases. And so, okay, they lied about, like, that's not true. So maybe that's not true. And if you're an 18-year-old Hasidic punk, doesn't know his behind from his elbow, then maybe from now on, I'm going to say A, because the real statement is you don't know your ASS from your elbow. That's what you're supposed to say. But I don't use swear words. So I think I'm going to say your A from your elbow. and just let everyone try to figure that out. What do you guys say? Does that work better? So if you're a punk and you just had, okay, you had the healing work, but you just had like the most intense experience of your life. And now it's like the next day and it's like, what is true here? What is true here? And now you take it one step further, is that you got a lot of people with resentment of their upbringing, meaning they're pissed off. They got hurt. Maybe they're even in that whole healing psychedelic ceremony to begin with because they were molested or they were beaten or they were embarrassed publicly. Like, who knows what that guy went through? And especially in a community that doesn't allow a lot of like anything in to see what's going on. It gives more room for bad stuff to go on. It's just the way things are. If you don't have people watching, people are up to no good sometimes. For all we know, this guy's Judaism was poisoned. It's already poisoned. And now, while someone like me would come back from such an experience, and now I'm putting on my black boxes and strapping down my leather straps and putting on my little Porsche on we keep our hair short here, so it's just touching. It's right on there. Yeah, no barriers between me and my black boxes. The same way I feel when I was driving up my turns here. I call them my turns, but when you come up to Jerusalem on the 333, which is such a cool, I'm so glad they gave our highway the 333, because the one to go straight into Jerusalem is called the 333. If you want to go to the Dead Sea, you have to go this other way, and that's called the one. The one stays that way. The 333 has now like 7 major Grand Prix turns, which means I put my car in boost mode. I'm in 4-wheel drive and I'm just flooring it around these turns. And when we got here today, my son's like, because I raced car. Oh, when I grew up before I was observant. So I raced cars for 7 years straight. When I say I raced cars, I don't mean like once a week. I was racing every day. And so I have a couple driving skills, which I actually used in Lakewood once because some boys had heard that story. I finished a class in Lakewood. I was in some town. I don't know where I was in Lakewood. And these boys said, can you show us how you drive, Rabbi? And I'm like, anyone got a sports car? And then one of the boys like, I do. And so I threw these guys on the sports car and we drove this street, a most amazing street. And I've heard there's another one like it. It was called, I think, North Lake Drive. Does that sound familiar? And give me a thumbs up, Chaim, if there's something called North Lake Drive or something. There's a South Lake Drive and a North Lake Drive. One's south of the lake of Lakewood and one's north of the lake. It is so amazing. Anyway, when I took these guys through, their cheeks were like this the whole time. And they were like, holy smokes, I was flying around the turns. The back of the car almost passed the front of the car on some of the turns. And anyway, so I just did that. So my son said to me when we got in Jerusalem, because the very last turn literally sends you straight into the center of Jerusalem. Like you're right in town, right at the entrance of the city. So my son says, don't you think it freaks out the other cars? Aren't like these, for all you know, some old lady's gonna be afraid to get in her car tomorrow. My answer was tough luck. Just kidding. But no, those are my turns. Okay. That's why I call them my turns. Now, what were we talking about? Is that you integrate the stuff. If I were to do such an experience, the next day it's in, man. That's going to be my relationship with God, which I'm about to tell you what the connection is with God, because we didn't get there yet. But many of these guys, they can't integrate it. They would have to do a whole bunch of healing about Judaism altogether, not to mention studying something about it, distinguishing what's a custom and what's the actual Torah, what's the baby and what's the bathwater. Not that the customs are bathwater, they're wonderful, but you don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Anyway, so what's the God connection? Okay, all of lies were stripped away. And what's the truth? And by the way, the active ingredient in DMT is, they actually call it the spirit molecule. And you can Google that, YouTube DMT, the spirit molecule, and watch that documentary. What's the spirit part? Well, besides the fact that that your brain is now outside space and time, you're outside space and time. Well, guess who's outside space and time? God. God's outside space and time. Okay, so there's one connection. I remember once as a kid, we were at a Grateful Dead concert, and what happened? We were about 6 friends, and one of them did not take one of these psychedelic compounds. I was not that one, you can imagine. And while the lead guitarist is playing his solo, and we're in there for hours, and we're just in it, but we were all schmoozing while we're listening. And we were having, what was our discussion? Did he play this? Is he playing it, or will he be playing it? And the 6th guy was listening to this conversation. This was going on for like 10 minutes. And finally, the guy who had not taken the psychedelic compound, he interrupts us and he says, "Are you guys freaking out of your minds? Like, you're in the middle of a concert having a discussion whether this happened, is happening, or will happen. Haya, hove, yeh. Was, is, will be? What?" And we're like, yeah, this is a serious discussion. We can't seem to figure this out. And the reason is because we were outside space and time. And that was really about time. What about space? Well, space gets really different on those compounds. And, you see stuff differently. And you even track things differently. Do you know that there are ancient tribes that used to take them for hunting? And they would use certain mushrooms for hunting, where they would see things with millimeter precision in shooting their spears. Not to mention that their muscles that have to fire exactly right to send that spear off had to be, everything had to be perfect. And they would just bullseye with it if they took a specific mushroom. If they were at war, they would take another one. That would cause a different level of response in warfare. And it's very interesting. But space becomes very different, especially if you close your eyes. And it's actually suggested that in therapy that people should have their eyes masked the entire time, so that there's no outside stimulation, so that they're in that visual plane, which is completely different than anything one could ever imagine. Now, during that time, one's thoughts and visuals and feelings, you couldn't write about it if the seas of the ocean were ink, and the trees of the forests were quills, and the earth was the parchment that you would write on. You would run out of ink, and you run out of quills, and you run out of parchment before you would finish explaining what happened in the last 10 minutes of the experience. So that's like, and there's a term for that, because obviously if that's the case, then you can never explain it, which means there are no words. And the term for that is, well, one term is ineffable. You can't say it, like God has ineffable names that you're not allowed to say. There's a lot of names of God that we're not allowed to say. We scan them with our eyes. It's ineffable. I can't even speak it. And another thing about it that's very interesting is that the other term is noetic. And noetic is an amazing term. It's actually a modern term, and I think it came from the psychedelic movement. The word noetic means that it's when you know something more sure than anything you've ever known in your life, but you couldn't explain it. If someone gave you $1 million, you could never explain it. Meaning it is more true than your hand got 5 fingers, that your parents are your parents, that your wife's your wife, that the pavement is the pavement, that the grass is the grass. It's more true to you than anything you've ever experienced in your entire life, yet you can't even explain it for $1 million. You'd never be able to explain it. That's called noetic. And so that's another big aspect of that. And tell me, how about God? If you think I made up that beautiful thing about the seas and the quills of the forest and the earth being the paper that you would write on the parchment, the cloth, if you think I made that up, I did not make that up. That is exactly what our sages said about our Torah, about the Torah with limited letters. It's got a finite number of letters. The combinations of the words are set forever. They're not like the hundreds of versions of the New Testament. There's no, it's there. It's one version, no mistakes, perfect transmission for generations after generation, thousands, 3,336 years at this point, huh? And to explain who Hashem is, to explain what's in that Torah, you never in a million years ever be able to explain it. And I can explain that too, by the way. You don't have to be a scholar to understand it. It's very simple, that every single word of the Torah has 70 possible meanings. Well, things start getting real exponential at that point. And not to mention the fact that every word is made of combination of letters. Let's say a word has 5 letters. So in those 5 letters, those actually have their own combinations that go. And even as you go along a word, you got different things. Like, for example, shamayim. Shamayim has shin, okay, which is fire, mem, which is water. Oh, by the way, shamayim means either the heavens or the skies. Okay, shamayim, which is fire and water. Shin, fire. Mem, water. Shamayim, shame is name. It's the word name. Shin, mem, yud is shmi, my name. Shin, mem, yud, mem, shamayim is the heavens. I already said, but it's also shin becomes could become a prefix, and it's that of water, that of the water, shemayim. And then, of course, you got the word mayim, which is the word water. What are you talking about? The heavens? You're talking about water. And then you could have get rid of the shin and the mem, and now you got yam. You got the sea. Suddenly you've got the sea in there. Interesting that the word mayim and has in it the sea. And unlike other languages in the world that have where the words of the language are symbolic. For example, this cup has in it water. And water is from Germanic Wasser. But Wasser doesn't mean water. It's just that symbolically, if you say the word to a German Wasser, it'll think of water. If you say the word in English water, we think of water. But what is water? Well, molecularly, it's it's in Hebrew, it's mayim. But molecularly, it's H2O, 2 hydrogens and an oxygen. Well, isn't that interesting that if you, I'll write this out real quick, that if you have 2 H's and an O, and the word the word for water in Hebrew is mayim, which is 2 mems and a yud. Looks like this. So if you're driving, don't look, please. Is that frontwards for you guys? Yeah, Moshe, nod your head if it's frontwards, if it looks okay. Okay. So you got, those are H's, 2 H's and an O. H2O. And water is mayim, 2 mems, mayim, 2 mems, which I already told you earlier are hydrogen, and the yud, I told you they represent water, and then the yud up there. So meaning when you ask for water in the holy tongue, it's not symbolic. When you ask for water in Hebrew, you're asking for the actual molecules in everything you look at. The sun, what is the sun? The sun is shemesh. Well, shins are carbon. Oh, yud is oxygen, by the way. Shin is carbon. And it's, and what is it called? It's called shemesh. Shin, mem is hydrogen, shemesh. What is it? It's a ball of hydrogen engulfed in flames. A burning ball of hydrogen is the shemesh, is the sun. And everything in Hebrew is describing itself. Is describing not describing the thing. It is the thing. It is the thing. That's the crazy part about it. And that was the language that got broken into the 70 languages. But the Torah itself has 70 meanings, every sentence. Well, think about it. If you have any mathematicians there, Moshe, you're parked, right? Do you know how to do math? You know how to do math? so if you have 70 meanings of every word, so one word 70, if you add another word, what are the meanings of that sentence? Is it now 140 meanings? Or does it get more? I think there's some exponential starts happening if you keep adding more words, because if every word has 70, I think it's 70 times 70, maybe. Is that right? Chaim, is it 70 times 70? Excellent. So it's 70 times 70. So now I'm running out of brain. So if it's 70 times 70, and you have let's say we have 10 words in a sentence. So 10 words in a sentence times 70 times 70, right? So a sentence with sorry about all the there we go. A sentence with 10 words has 49,000 possible meanings. Is that possible, Chaim? Am I crazy? He runs an accounting firm, so is that really possible? 49,000 meanings in 10 word sentence?
I think it should compound even more, because let's say if you take one word that has 70 meanings and then you have another word. So now each 70 against the 70 has their own meaning of 70. And now, so it starts to compound. It goes even way more than that. Should go beyond it.
So Chaim, I have a question for you. I'm going to bring you on here too. Chaim, please drive carefully. You keep your eye on the road. What's the connection to 70 languages of the world and the 70 meanings of the Torah, of each word in Torah?
I'm not sure, but when you mentioned it, it was like, whoa, interesting how they go together.
Yeah, amazing. Is your car in self-drive right now?
Yes.
Okay, good. So, excellent.
That's an interesting thought.
Anyway, but I would like to know the connection. I learned it. What? Yeah, go ahead.
I have same period when that, but the daughter Fluga that Hashem gave the 7 languages, and right after that, then Avram came and Hashem split the 70 nations, and he took us. So the 70 languages and the 70 nations happened at the same time. Split happened. And
interesting. Right.
I mean, I think in Azini it says that Bisfoid Amem, I think, in the count of the nations is Yaakov descendants was 70.
Right. 70 people went down to Egypt of Jacob's family. Interesting. Wow. And so we come from these 70 souls that went down there. 70s. And we're considered, speaking of today's times, we're considered a sheep amongst 70 wolves, which is crazy. Wow. Okay. Guys, I'm throwing a big party tonight. I have 50 people over for a Sheva Brachas of dear friends, real Yerushalmis, my really close friend Zalman Grossman. He's in charge of the Mekoimas Kedoshis. So he handles, like, if you come to Kever Shimon Tzadik and see, or Shmuel Navi or Kever Rachel or the Chevron, you see the giant oil things and the food being served and all that. He's behind all this stuff. His name's Zalman Grossman. He's an amazing Jew. So he married off another child, Baruch Hashem. And anything else you want to say, Chaim, while we're here? You good?
I love you, and I love you all.
Thank you. We love you too.
Chaim, I love you too.
Shalom, everybody. Oh, wow. Look who else is here. Chaim Shalom. Wow. Okay, now we got the 3 of us. Oh my gosh. I have so much nachas from you guys. Amazing. Okay. Michael Lachael, from strength to strength, everybody. All the best. Shalom. Let's keep doing this. Bye-bye.